With new findings in DNA and innocent men being found on death row, the death penalty has become a controversial issue in Missouri. Some have pushed for a moratorium on capital punishment. Where do you stand as a candidate, and if you disagree with the current system, how would you change it?
The question is about the death penalty and whether people should still be executed and how we set up our system. I'm personally opposed to the death penalty with one exception, and that is if someone kills my wife and I see them do it, I will be happy to push the button myself. Other than that, the risk of putting to death an innocent person, usually a man, even though they in fact did not commit the crime, is not worth having the death penalty executed upon that person. I would absolutely put a moratorium on executions in this state, and most likely, depending on the individual circumstance, commute the sentence of any person on death row to life in prison. I will be happy to exchange the possibility of their declared innocence later in exchange for the extra cost.
Thank you, Andy. Jay Nixon.
As Attorney General of the state of Missouri, one of the difficult responsibilities of this job is to be the person that's on the phone to the prison at 12:01 a.m. to begin the execution protocol. I have done that more times than all other attorney generals before me combined. I believe in the option for juries to award the ultimate penalty for the ultimate crime. It is important that we have the safeguards necessary to make sure what we're doing correctly. And that is why I've supported over the years, and Missouri was one of the first states under EDPA, the Effective Death Penalty Act, to make sure we were fully funding many of the defense areas. I've worked hard to make sure that the trials were fair. We've worked hard to open up evidence to make sure that we made no mistakes in that regard. But for a myriad of serious, murderous offenses, I believe keeping within the option of juries in this state, the option of the ultimate penalty for the ultimate crime, is important and vital to the future of our state. Thank you.
Gregory Thompson.
There has to be a consequence for actions. You know, we discipline our children because we love them. It has its impact all across our society when we have people give a consequence and have people accept that consequence for their crime. The ultimate, like my friend said, capital punishment is very serious. We've seen it on TV and other times where the prosecutor and the defense are it's about winning and not about what's right or what's just. That's why it's very important that on something as heinous as a capital crime, where there's death is required, that we have to look at having two witnesses at least. If we have two witnesses to that, we can look at the capital punishment going all the way to execution. Otherwise, we put our people at risk, and that's why we have to be very careful. It would be better, and it actually costs less to incarcerate someone for 20 years than to go after the death penalty by a few $1 million, in fact. So as far as to the public, there's less cost to see that justice is served and that the innocent can go free if they ultimately find out the truth.
Kenny Hulshof.
A moratorium? No. I'm the only person, I think, certainly up here, who has had the opportunity to witness the death penalty in our state as a court-appointed public defender who was appointed to defend a man who was ultimately condemned to die. Prosecuted a number of death penalty cases, I think some 16 cases over the course of my career, and actually have witnessed an execution. The right of the innocent to live far outweighs the right of the guilty with special circumstances not to die. But unless you stand in front of a collection of 12 and look them in the eye and ask them to do something that they don't want to do, the death penalty must be reserved for the most heinous criminals among us. Thankfully, because the moratorium suggests that there's something inconsistent in our legal structure. And yet, thankfully, there's a heavy presumption against the death penalty in Missouri statute. If there's not unanimity among the 12 jurors, life in prison. If the prosecutor cannot prove a special legal circumstance, the judge must impose life in prison. The strong appellate process that happens if a jury, in fact, collectively determines that the ultimate punishment is required. And all of those things are entirely appropriate because for the ultimate punishment, the law should favor life, but we should also have the death penalty in certain instances.